fitting the first step in the transom of Trimaran that we extended on the sandbank.
Well, welcome back to Living on the Ocean. It's a bit funny, I hang almost upside down in here because I want to show you how I'm going to make a floor on this. But there's something that I learned from a carpenter when I just started building my first boat, and have been using it ever since, and it always works. So I hope that you enjoy this.
It took some time to work out, being afloat, how to make the chain plates and how to build all the bulkheads. But that's now all done and it's sanded, and they've been stuck in place with filler. Very soon after that we cut all the glass fiber, we glassed all the bulkheads, and we reinforced the ones around the rudder with carbon fiber. That's all behind us now, but now we have to make the top on it, and that's going to be a whole new challenge. So let's start by placing a board in the middle of the space that we need to fill up, and stick it in place with some tape so it can absolutely not move, or use some screws. And we're getting ourselves a piece of wood on which we're gonna cut a point. That's good enough. And all we need to do to make this shape is put it there. It doesn't matter how I have it, that spot is the same, as long as I draw that line. Now you can build a shape with little pieces and screw or glue them together, and I've done that as well. In small spaces that's easy. Or for small boards, I mean, that's easy. But when you do complete bulkheads or big areas, then this is actually a lot easier way to do it. And it's a very fast way to make a complicated shape. Now this is not so complicated, this is basically a big trapezium shape with a couple of corners out of it. But it's effective and it works. So why not showing it, and why not using it?
I can imagine that you now think, how in the world is that going to work? But you saw how fast you can do something like this, and I did not speed that up.
So now I'm going to lay this piece on top of a piece of foam and copy this shape. And I should take a little bit in account that the height I have here is actually making it a bit wider. So it should be just tight, or actually if I do it very accurate, it's going to be just too big. So let's get a piece of foam to make this on. Lay this on here and remark. Make sure that that's laying correct, because we knew it was. So what I'm gonna do is very simple. Say I need to come from there to there to there. Basically, we know that that's straight, so that's basically doing that, and that's basically the corner, and there, from there we basically have to go there. So that's it, that's it, that's it. I was working in a Dutch place called Lelystad, when a man called Cor was building a beautiful boat. And if you see woodwork craftsmanship, he could do it. And when I started building my first trimaran and cut it in the middle to make it longer, I had to start making shapes, and I was making wooden shapes when he just put a board like this in the middle and said, look, now you draw this on here and you have your shape. And it looked very confusing when I saw him do it the first time, till I tried it, and actually it's not at all as confusing as it looks like. Just follow one line at a time, place the dot, and that's basically it. And now we can take the board away and we can draw the lines between the dots. In a straight line like this, or almost straight lines on the side, it's reasonable easy. To make it in a different way, but when you have the curves of a hull in it as well, it gives you the perfect round curves without cutting pieces up and up and up to make them fit and screw or glue them together. Now we know we still need to cut a triangle out of here, so this end is not so important. And there's my famous Stanley knife again. Yes, I've cut with it in my fingers. I'm not planning to do this on video. And always fun to go and see if it fits. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. I've done it so many times over the last years.
Trimaran Trinity got struck by lightning and we had to sell her. But my love for trimarans survived and I've been building them ever since. So, welcome inside Dawn actually. Above me here is navigation table. Up here is the cooker, which you can just not see. So here's the board. I do not want a flat shape. What I want this floor to be a little bit like that. Yeah? Which will stay that way if you put the fibers on each side. We're going to put fiber on one side, lay it in place over a curve, and then we will glass the top. That's the plan. Move everything to here. That's taking the time. Then I have to crawl through here again. So this is where I sit very often to have my coffee. I have to drink water here, it's hot. And then I'm in the aft cabin. And you can see here, all the pots with epoxy. Leftover epoxy. Of course we can use those pots again. But you pull out those bits of epoxy. But you have to make sure you get everything out. And one person spending a lot of time doing that is actually Cheryl always. Thank you, Cheryl. You can see yesterday I made a bit too much filler. So that gives me this nice piece of art. So let me get a board. So that's those angles. So it's like this, almost fits. So what's happening, it's jamming itself. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit more off. That should make it fit perfectly. So those are the little bits I had to cut off for the triangle. Let's start mark now on the top where everything is gonna come. I already know that the side on this side actually needs to be cut a little bit shorter over here, because when I put the transom on just to keep the water off from coming in, I didn't care about if it was 90 degrees. But now it's easy to put 90-degree lines on it. And I also still need to cut out this trapezium shape actually out of the back. And drawing that shape now on the top of the foam so I can cut it. Nothing is too complicated, it all just takes time and doing it correct. As you will find out a little bit later, I'm not doing it correct, I'm making a mistake here, but one I can solve. And now editing all this material to make this video, I really realize I should have called this episode My Little Orange Stanley Knife. But they're simply so handy and fun to make shapes with this foam. And that's basically my shape. I took off a tiny bit too much off there. That was my mistake. That's what I will put back. Just cut it off the bit I just cut off. Just put it back up there because it will be glassed anyway. So that's done. Fixed. No, I'm not checking out if this is spirit level. Just checking out how flat it really is.
because I don't want a flat board. I want something with a curve. To give it the shape for the first step, what I am thinking about how I'm going to make it, which side is easier to glass first. I can glass the bottom and then glass the top. Yeah, before I'm going to make this a lot more complicated, I'm going to put glass on this bottom part first, which I'm going to do in there because here I don't have a flat surface to lay it on. Now what I also want is I want little pieces here and here to basically continuation of this to support the piece that's going to come here. Underneath here is going to be a water tank, so I'm going to cut holes in here so I can stick my hands to those holes in that water tank. The water tank is going to continue here, so here I need to make two places to open this up and be able to clean. Well, laminating again. I'm going to put glass fiber on one side of this board. Coffee time for me, another day to get progress on Trimaran Dawn. I want this line already drawn on this board here, which I'm also going to do over here. For that I'm using just pieces of foam that are screwed against there. And this is a sail pattern which takes a very nice curve, so you can see that line isn't straight anymore. If I hold this against it, you can see there's a slight curve in there, and that's going to be, this wall is going to come out till about here, yeah, and goes from 5 centimeter on the beginning, building up to 15, and will slowly curve around like this and then come this way. And I've been puzzling with how do I get the water to run out of here, and the easiest way would be, well, you make a hole in here later and we let the water go out that comes in here, and the gases from the gas bottles they're gonna stand in here. But that also means that every wave that washes in from behind will wash on the floor that's gonna come here. They will wash out, but you want as less as possible water to come in here. So I've come up with an idea that since this is gonna be a double wall, I can make my hole here, and the water will run into the space behind this. So if a wave hits from behind here, it doesn't hit anything, and then I can make a hole towards the side there. I would say, well, you could do that over here as well, but I think it would be nice to just let it go out to the sides. I know when I'm sailing on the ocean and big following waves put pressure, hit in this area, that's a lot of pressure of water coming in here, and the smallest gap into this area will just pump water into here. I'm quite sure now that making the hole there for the water and the gases to run out here and then go through this wall, which is above, that much above the water line, that will be a nice place, and I can make a bit of a shell shape in there so the water will go nicely by there. That's the plan. And that's how I love to build. When I work out one thing and building it, I'm thinking about the next step. So that's the top of the board. I put glass on it yesterday. The bottom I already did. So now the glass on top, I put filler on it. To make sure it doesn't get stuck, I put plastic over here. So there's plastic, so it cannot be stuck. But I had to put in screws to keep it in a little bit in the curve. So it should have a tiny curve in it now. To get those screws out, I need to find them back. And I stuck little bits of this paper tape on each screw head to make sure that epoxy doesn't go inside, else you never screw them back out. And since this is water, this is my screwdriver, this head is not so good and it doesn't clamp things so well. So every once in a while things fall out. So yesterday, with my nice head for screws, I popped it up there and I heard dunk-a-dunk-a-dunk plunge. And my nice screw bit fell right over this into the water. I mean, I won't put up the real audio of that bit. And there's your screw. While I'm sitting here, Do you see those edges for me plastering? Again, those things are fantastic. And that's how you get rid of them. So if you put a screw in on top when you think it's there, I think I found that the screw doesn't want to go in. And there's the screw. And voila! Screws are out. This should now be loose and it's a bit stuck, but there we are. There's the board. That's the plastic. And that's the floor. Now, it's still a bit rough, but since it was done yesterday, it should be reasonably easy to cut off all this now. There's only 2 layers of 350 grams glass on here. I'm gonna put some more where we're gonna stand, but that happens when we laminate this into place. Not as easy to cut tomorrow as it is today, and the epoxy is getting harder, so today you can do this quite nicely. And that is our board. Yeah, you can see yesterday I made these supports. Now what we want is we want to glue this to this, because else the water from here goes in there when it's full. Obviously we can make a hole in here, as I already said we will, and then laminate from underneath, but there's an easier way to do this, and that's what I'm going to do today. The easy way to do it is to glass the strips on here, then put glue on this and push this back in place. But before we're gonna glass this, we're gonna put brown tape on there. And that brown tape will not attach that glass too well. So after we've then pushed it on here and pulled this back off, all the strips will stay nicely on here, on the exact height they need to be for this, and in the exact curve. But that's the first bit. I'm pleased with it. Now, obviously that's the easy one. That's there and there. You see, good things fall out of the sky here. Doesn't have to be perfectly smooth, but it helps to do it nice. Now if you get this tape from a cheap quality, it's a real problem actually, because, and actually I think that was the one, the brown glue they use will stick to the surface. Well, the better quality tape, it doesn't. This is all work that you may say, it's a lot of work to do everything like that. I guarantee you it's a lot easier than trying to work upside down in small little places and trying to glue something, or just stick a lot of muck behind it and hope it glues well enough, which is no problem in most places.
till you need to be in there for something and you gonna not really like the person that did it because all that stuff is in your way later. And sometimes it's time for a bit of fun. I put the tape back on the roll. Well, it's all taped off and I can start putting the glass fiber on the bottom of it, which I will keep very short because we have shown enough glass fiber work in this series already. So I'm laminating all those bits now on here, which are gonna make the flange. And it's only gonna be a gluing connection, so I can keep it quite light. I don't need to put lots of layers on here. And why am I not rolling this? Because I do not want the epoxy next to the strips where I'm working and the rollers are too wide for that. Then I have epoxy all over the deck where I did not put any tape. Now you cannot wipe this too much, because this material, look, you can make it wider and longer, because they lay like this, plus minus 45. So you have to keep it in the right place. Well, that's done, that needs to cure, and in that time I'm doing something else that I'm gonna regret tomorrow. Just one of the things. It's a big can of epoxy, empty. And draining the last bit out to that spot so that I can later put it in there and then it's an empty container. Another one. We go to quite a bit of epoxy. I've given myself a new challenge here, don't you think so? I'm a bit black, but since I'm starting to build the frame for extending this roof, it's gonna be challenging. Because now I have to do some kind of lumba, or however you call that. Ah, there are my feet. To still come in here. The joys of boat building. It keeps you fit, let's say. I need gloves, I need my sleeves. I thought it was smart to do this yesterday while I was waiting for this to cure. I'm wondering a little bit if I should have finished all that before doing this, but this will every time now take lots of waiting time, in which I want to continue actually this. I think you can see, here's the board that has all this fiber stuck there. Those openings will be there, they are very small, and I have to get my hands through from the other side to glass on this and on those walls. So if I now be able to turn this over, this is gonna lay here. I'm gonna sand the flange that I made yesterday. Oh, come out here. You can see it here. I'm gonna sand this flange, and I'm gonna sand everything in here. Now, sanding the flange with this tool that I demonstrated before was very easy, but it took a long time with hand sandpaper to sand everything in those little squares behind me. Because when this is on top of it, you don't want to do much sanding in there anymore. All you want to do when this is glued on is painting it. And then there's one more job to make the connection better. Since we've got a glue on here, it doesn't do much good to glue to this foam. So I'm gonna take some of this foam out. I'm gonna fill this gap, which is now about half a centimeter deep. I'm gonna fill this gap with filler, which already gives a much better connection than straight on top of this. Now, especially because this is water tank, I want a very good connection from here to there. Else when the boat goes forward backwards, water will slowly go past here and fill up that empty space.
Easiest is to vacuum clean those little bits up, but take the big bits, throw them straight in the rubbish. That wasn't a lot of work, but it will make the connection a lot stronger, because you're basically gluing also on the inside of that a tiny bit. So what we're now going to do is reasonably simple. I have to level out both sides, so I need a bit of working space there. A bit of, call it mess. That is mess, because that's actually the last one that should go in there, not the first. Really handy, that's how you make a real mess. Put that on there for now, since you're going to glue that later anyway. But that was the first one. Hard to reach. Now all the spots have been sanded very well and will be painted with an epoxy paint white inside. That makes it easy in the repair. Now you see me putting the filler in the gaps and putting 4 layers of glass fiber in that corner that I just filled out with foam and filler. Not all filler, because then we would have got exotherm again. And then the final glue in the gaps that I just made. Put it very well in there and leave a little bit on the top. Not too much, because that will actually become big blobs underneath, and then I have a lot of work to get it away. It's not such a problem if there's not enough, because I am going to put glass underneath it and fill out the gaps before I do that. Okay, all done. I can get my gloves off. I'm tired. This was a big job. And I get the board and put it on, but I forget to turn on the camera. I cannot take it off again, it will be a big mess. So you have to believe I just stuck it on. Here we are, the water bottles can come off. It's gonna be the day, did we? You can see this doesn't want to stick. I did build this bit because the new floor, now if I glue it to this, has a connection to the bottom of this one. And I put a bit of a wedge on some mixing sticks, which I'm now trying to tap in between the connection of the glue and the brown tape. It's a bit difficult because I could go into the foam of the top bit I just made in the sandwich construction, so I have to make sure I'm underneath. And it's working because it creates a tension and I can hear it crackling, it's releasing itself. A bit of a pull, that's it, it's off. And look, there's our flange, and that looks very good. Now obviously I have to work on the edges, but now I have an easy way of just folding some glass around the corners and glue the bottom of this flange to the sides. This is a perfect connection, and after it's all done and painted white with some glue, it goes back in there. But that's for the next episode, and then we can start building the top of the transom with the stairs. And we're getting closer to being back with our dolphins and being back on the ocean. Thank you, Cheryl, for another great picture. And thank you all our subscribers. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was an extensive one, but for those that are building, I hope there are lots of little tips and things that you can use for yourself. I hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching Living on the Ocean.